Jumped off the porch, now I'm just cool, just cool. I had to change my mood in life when I woke up.
So, Jermichael, tell us a little bit about Jermichael, the person.
Yeah, so I'm an active father of 4 beautiful children. My oldest being 22, my youngest being 2. So I got a wide range there.
Okay.
2 boys, 2 girls. Of course, I'm actively involved in the community. I love coaching sports. Of course, I'm a mentor. Of course, entrepreneur. I've had a couple businesses in the community. I've created a few nonprofits. And then I also work with nonprofits and with other nonprofits as well in the community.
Do you ever get time just for you?
Yeah, man. You have to make time. You know, reading books and things of that nature. I always try to make space and time to get in nature. I love walking. I'm a very, very avid walker. I love music. Doesn't have to have lyrics, as you know, we were talking about off air. Doesn't matter the genre. I just love the sound of music. Of course, gospel is one of my favorite.
Okay.
Along with R&B and old school music. And then I call it doodling, but I'm an artist. I love to draw and paint and things of that nature as well. So I'm just into the arts, man. I'm really a Pisces.
Hey, there you go. Okay, so that means you're born in February area?
I'm born March 1st.
Okay, I'm February 27th, so we're right around the same time there.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So what got you wanting to get involved with community-based anything?
I work for the Department of Juvenile Services. My first stint with Juvenile Services was 5.5 years. But my first 2 years there, me and one of my friends, close friends, Greg Bubby Brown, coaches at Bennett High School, we saw that it was a revolving door of young people who actually felt safer and more comfortable being locked up than they were in their broken homes.
Talk to me. Why would they feel that way?
A lot of our children live in broken homes, and what you mean by that is, they have a mother, may not have a father. Mom may be doing everything that she can right,
sure,
but there's still struggles in today's society, So she may not have the time to go to sports or have them actively involved in sports because she's working 12-hour shifts. She may not always be home to make those home-cooked meals or have that dinner around the table. She may not be able to show up to school events or PTA because she work, the working mother. So a lot of times those kids also come from homes where there's the mothers who they've lost hope, right? They have no inspiration, they have no motivation. They have multiple kids, so that is a wear and tear on them mentally. So they're dealing with mental health issues and dealing with some other things, and then the kid has to go home and the kid is the babysitter, or the kid is the man of the house, or the kid, a lot of the weight falls on the kid, or the mother can be abusive, she could be addicted. So there's a lot of facets that fall into play when it comes to a broken home. In juvenile lockup, you have caring individuals. You get 3 meals a day. You're safe when you sleep. They have some fun activities. They're still kids. Even though they're facing the charges that they're facing, I live a lot better in the juvenile service system than I would at home, because there's a lot of things that I would get here that I just don't know if I'm going to get at home. So seeing that revolving door is what caused us to get actively involved in our community. We created our first program, which was Kids Rock basketball program back then. And then it led into me creating other programs and getting actively involved in community and politics from there.
So you became kind of a surrogate family.
Yeah, man. It's like we call it a brotherhood. Okay. For the boys, sisterhood for the girls, and like you said, family for everyone.
Absolutely.
But my biggest draw has always been coaching basketball. Basketball. My motto is basketball makes us family. I have players from all over the Eastern Shore. Have for a very long time. I've been coaching for like 20 years.
Wow. Okay.
But we all family. Still to this day, those kids that are grown kids now who are having children still consider me coach, still consider me family, still consider me a mentor, still can call me, and anything I can do for them, I do. So, we're like a family to those kids that don't have family. And that's the same reason, even though it's frowned upon, a lot of our young men and young women join gangs right? Or get into negative groups.
You're right.
Because it's a family-oriented thing, right? It's just like being a part of a sport. It's just like being a part of a club. And a lot of times they're just looking for love.
Absolutely. I know as a young person, a teenager, I was looking for that. And before I turned to the streets, I turned to the church.
Yeah.
And that became like my surrogate family as well. And they filled the void that maybe I wasn't getting. Not saying that family's not, doesn't love you at home, but sometimes the parent maybe is overwhelmed. Or like you said, overwhelmed with just trying to provide, and then that very important thing, they just are tired when they get home. They don't get that very important time, which is time.
Yeah, time matters, man.
Loves a lot of times can be spelled T-I-M-E.
Yeah, for sure.
Wow. And again, like I was saying earlier, I've known you the majority of your life, so I know you come from a background of a loving family.
Yeah, family was everything, man. I come from a strong woman-oriented family.
Yeah,
my great-grandmother was the pillar of our family. Church was our stronghold. She was one of the 5 founding members of our church on Robinson Street that still sits there now to this day. So very proud of that. But coming from a religious background and a strong, matriarch family, I learned a lot of things, man. And giving was one of the key things. Our families were giving families, man. So that's where my giving comes from. Just growing up with a family who, between church and the things that they did for our community, as far as through the church, it was always giving. It was always being of service.
I'm getting a little goosebumps because you're talking about Robinson Street. And of course, your grandmom and my grandmom were literally like
next door neighbors, for sure.
Absolutely. Actually, same church and everything. Wow. Okay, welcome back to Bridging the Gap. My name is David James, and we're here doing executive decision. We are joined by our county executive, Julie Donald. Thank you again for joining us.
Yeah, and thank you for coming to my office.
Yes,
I really appreciate it.
It's always a pleasure to coming here. We're also joined by our host here, which is Tyler Jones. Tyler?
Thank you for having me again. Thank you for welcoming me into your office. I'm currently the campaign manager for Kanisha LaCole, who's running for school board, Wicomico County District 7. If you're not already following those pages, please do so.
Thank you. And can you tell us a little bit about your background so they'll know about it?
I've had some fun in the community. I had time. I volunteered with Phoenix Youth Project for many years. I was the president of that board. I was the chairperson for the communications of Shore Progress before the rebrand. I'm part of the Tri-County MLK Coalition that does the annual Dr. King celebration. What am I not a part of? I don't know. The list goes on.
Well, we appreciate it. Tyler, would you like to ask the first question to the executive?
Certainly. Once again, thank you for having us.
Sure.
And I just really wanted to dig into the 287G. I think a lot of members of the community don't understand why that's important in the community and what you were trying to accomplish by pushing that through.
Yeah, so the 287G actually was not even my idea. So it was actually brought to me by Sheriff Lewis. He met with me and had me come over to his office. He talked about public safety. He talked about, border security is a huge thing for him. And illegal immigration is something that he feels very, very strongly about and passionate about. And he wanted to know if I would support the initiative if he went forward with 287G. So the original thought was that everything was going through the sheriff's office. I don't, the only thing I oversight of the sheriff's office is the budget, but that's pretty much it. It's a very finite thing. He is an elected official just like the state's attorney, and so they run their organizations pretty independently from, county government, so to speak, even though they sort of fall under the umbrella. It's kind of an interesting setup. But I told him 100%, I support you as the sheriff, I support your initiative. And as we move forward in that 287G conversation, he realized that he could not do it by himself. The county executive, my signature had to go on it somewhere, and we just had to figure out what that looked like. So he brought me back over, and we had that conversation. We looked at the different models. We originally looked at the jail enforcement model. We realized the amount of training that takes place. We are 30 correctional officers down, and so we knew that it was going to put an unnecessary strain on our correctional officers and on that whole facility. And so then we looked at the warrant service officer model, and basically what that entails is there are incarcerated individuals that are also on ICE's radar. What happens is that our deputies, our original thought was that our deputies are going to serve a warrant to the already incarcerated individuals that allows us to hold them just for an additional 48 hours. So they're already incarcerated now. They'll be held for additional 48 hours, and then within that 48-hour period, ICE would have to come over and do their I don't want to say.
Paperwork.
Yeah. I mean, it's not interrogation because that's the wrong word, but they actually, they kind of do their vetting process.
Sure,
that's the word I was looking for. They do their vetting process. Right now, we are currently doing something similar, not even entering into 287G. So when somebody is an incarcerated individual and they are getting ready to be released by the commissioner or whatever the case may be, if they are on ICE's radar, we actually let them know, hey, they're going to be let out at 10 o'clock. You can be here to get them or not. You know what I mean? And then we release them into the community regardless, and then ICE is there. So we kind of do something similar. What we were hoping to do is to help them out a little bit with the additional 48-hour hold, and that was really the only difference, and that was kind of getting us in the door. What we were hoping is that, and what we were sort of told is that the 287G with the community, when different communities are working with ICE, it sort of puts guardrails up on the community, right? So people are so fearful that ICE is going to come in masks and they're going to be taking these people off of the streets. They are able to do that now. Sure. I think I haven't seen any masked individuals, but that's not to say it hasn't happened. They can do that now, and when you enter in the 287G, you almost hope that ICE then sort of respects those guardrails and says, okay, they're working with us, this is how we're going to do this. So that was kind of the thought behind it. Then it sort of metamorphed into only I was going to be signing it. The deputies then could not be a part of it due to the legal opinion and the guidance that came out from the Attorney General. He said Maryland law says correctional officers, not law enforcement, so law enforcement cannot be involved at all.
Correct.
And so at that point in time, we then took a step back because this was, again, really something through the sheriff's office. When we realized the sheriff's office wasn't going to be a part of it, we're now kind of in that reevaluation phase to see, is this something we really need to do? And so we're kind of evaluating that. There has been some talk in this upcoming legislative session that there may be some changes to Maryland law. And so they're looking at maybe they'll add law enforcement. I seriously doubt it. It might be that they remove correctional officers completely. So it's going to be kind of up in the air, and that's why we sort of took that step back. Currently, right now, I could enter into that agreement with my correctional officers right now, could obviously do that. But we decided, based on the guidance coming out, the fact that the sheriff couldn't necessarily be involved the way that he wanted to, and then this upcoming session, it was just better for us to just pause everything.
More info. You're getting more info before you go forward.
Exactly.
So is it a political, is this like a political chess game going on between the governor and the administration in Washington, or?
I think so. I mean, everything is politicized, right? So you're going to politicize everything. I think, the previous administration, federal administration under the Biden administration, border security just wasn't a top priority. It's now a top priority of the Trump administration. So, and that's just a difference. I mean, that's just one of the differences between the two. So definitely a priority of this administration. So you do kind of see that battle, back and forth. You have a very Democratic state with a Republican-led federal, government. So, you're always going to have that. And then you have counties like ours that are, pretty much a red county for the most part, but they're in a Democratic state with this red federal, the federal government. So you're really trying to do that balance, and it is difficult sometimes. But yeah, I would say everything is political, honestly.
Well, I did hear the public outcry at the county council meeting. I know you were there. Many concerns were addressed, which you also just talked about, which was people coming in masks, grabbing people, they're going to fight, which I think is a normal response.
Right.
How could we actually safeguard against that?
I don't think there's anything we can do to safeguard against that. So the 287G, the model that I had, literally is not involved in any sort of masked individuals coming into, and doing that. I can't stop the federal government from coming in and doing that. So ICE is going to do their thing. But like I said, our hope was, when I spoke to the sheriff, is that if we are a county that really much is trying to work with ICE and trying to work with that it would put those those guardrails up so those type of things don't happen. If we can control it, and it's controlled at our jail, and with already incarcerated individuals, you would hope that the public would not want somebody back out on the street. You know what I mean? At least without being vetted first.
It makes sense.
Yeah, they've broken immigration law, and then they're also in jail for something else. So there's two different crimes that we could say that have already been committed. I wouldn't understand why any person in our society would not want that person vetted to say, okay, you're fine to go back out on the street, because you've already broken two different types of laws within the community, which is why you're in our jail right now. You're not in there for being an illegal immigrant, because we don't do that, but you are in there, for something else that you chose to do. So I think from the sheriff's perspective, and I don't want to speak for him, but this was very much a public safety thing. And what I don't like about it is all this focus by certain people is on me. It's on the county executive. This was a joint effort. This was a joint thing. And I will tell you, members of that county council would have voted for that, because they wouldn't have said no to the sheriff. They wouldn't have. And they have said behind closed doors that they support it. They've told the head of corrections that they support it. But they want to, showboat over here, which I don't like that at all. Right. Because, if you feel a certain way, that's fine. But just stand your ground and say, this is how I feel. You know what I mean? Don't cater to an audience, because it gives them a false hope as if they have, the county council on their side, or some members of the county council. Meanwhile, they're going behind closed doors over at the sheriff's office saying we 100% support this. So it's just, that part's really frustrating. I will say I at least respect the sheriff enough, and I hope people respect me enough to where my opinion never swayed, it never changed. This is what we were going to do in the name of public safety. It's never to make people scared. It was never intended to intimidate people. And I understand that there were some people, that were upset about it, but that outcry was so minimal compared to the amount of support we had. Now, granted, they didn't come to the council meeting, but email after email and message after message. There are people that are really upset with the sheriff and I right now because of taking a step back and reevaluating. And I told them, I can't put 98 deputies at risk. I'm not going to do that.
No.
We're not going to do that. So we have a lot of individuals that are very upset with us right now on the other side because we did pause it. And but that was the smartest thing for us to do, to sort of reevaluate where we are.
I think on the flip side of that conversation, from what I saw and just looking at the county council meeting, is the sheriff walked in and he specifically said, hey, I avoided the public comments because I didn't want to create any confusion. But he is an elected official. Right. And part of that is listening to the public comments. And then the concerns of the community are mostly, hey, we don't want people coming in here wearing masks and snatching us off the street. You got to look at the separation of families. So even if, say, a father is incarcerated and he gets deported, what then happens to the family? What then happens to the children? And I think we've all seen those situations where families are separated, the children are separated. And I think that's a major concern here. These are not, these are justified. And I think it's just having a dialogue to address these concerns as opposed to, hey, I specifically avoided that. Right.
Well, I think people also feel that if we don't enter into the agreement, that stops that. I literally cannot stop the federal government.
Yeah, so that's what happens now.
Yeah, the separation of families may still happen. I mean, that still could happen. The fact that we didn't enter into it literally changes nothing when it comes to the federal government. It just shows that our jail is not going to be a holding cell for 48 hours. Like, that's literally the only thing that changes. But ICE is still here. They have an office here in Salisbury. They're out doing what they're supposed to do. But I've had, I had a serious conversation with the guy that we have been in contact with and we have been working with. Sure. I talked to him on Friday and I said, there is a concern with your MOA that says, this MOA is between a law enforcement agency and ICE, and the state of Maryland says the law enforcement agency can't work with ICE. So I explained to him, I said, if you're going to put these MOAs out, my suggestion is to change it to match Maryland law that says correctional officers, not law enforcement, based on this Attorney General's opinion. So that
last month, there was a little bit of controversy for Councilman James Wynn. Excellent man, great man. He is the councilman of Wicomico County, of course, and he was on the hot seat, or he was facing some backlash or pressure after he read from the Bible.
Right.
He read from the Bible during a county council meeting. And what ended up happening was I myself and a few other young men from Salisbury University, as well as from outside the school, went to speak at one of the county council meetings that happened about a month ago. What were your thoughts on that and how that went? Did you think it went well?
I will say, I think you all coming up and speaking for James was one of the most powerful things that I've ever seen in the community. And I was so proud to not only be just a friend of James Wynn's, but just to see, the amount of support and love that he got. And I will tell you, I think that there is a misinterpretation of this separation of church and state. So there is not a document out there, not the Constitution, not the Declaration of Independence, nothing that talks about the separation of church and state. It was a letter written by Thomas Jefferson, and I will tell you, it was to protect the church from the state, not the state from the church. And so at the end of the day, what people need to understand is that our Constitution is based on the Bible. I mean, there is a correlation between the two. And so to sit there and say that we are not a Christian-based community, or to say that we are not a Christian-based government, is just false. I understand that not everybody is Christian. That's fine. But at the end of the day, James Wynn is. And that Bible, and the verses that he read spoke to him, and how he legislates, and so for somebody to criticize him, I thought was pretty awful. And so I'm proud of him. He stood his ground. We're still saying the Lord's Prayer at the beginning of the council meeting, so I was really proud of the council in general for kind of standing their ground and saying, if you choose not to say it, that's fine, but we're going to continue on with the way that we've done things. So I thought that you did great. So.
I find it kind of unique when we're talking about the Lord's Prayer. It's actually a blueprint, so it's technically not even a prayer. So, for them to say that we shouldn't be doing that at the beginning, it's a blueprint.
Yeah.
It's literally not what prayer really is. But at the same time, I did see that there was a lot of support that came from the Salisbury University, and then I also heard from a lot of other people that said, hey, Christianity does not mean Republican, and it doesn't mean Republican, but it is something that whether you're a Democrat or Republican, it's a part of this nation. And
right.
I've talked to even Council Lady April Jackson, who says that as long as she's been on the city council, there's always been prayer. And she doesn't see that needs to change. So this is not something, just because Councilman Wynn is a Republican, that's a Republican thing that wants prayer. So, and actually the city council actually does, they get people to come in and pray. So it's not even the Lord's Prayer. But just wanted to add that part.
Right, no, and that's a good point. Something you said about Christianity, it's not just for the Republicans, it's for everybody, of course, Democrats, independents. So those issues that have to do with Christians, that really impacts voters across the spectrum.
Yeah, absolutely. So
I appreciate your comments on that. There are a lot of insightful very insightful position that you hold on that. My next question for you is that we're going to go back in time a little bit with this one. So going back to November 2024, there was a vote by the Wicomico County populace. They voted on Question A, Question A referendum. And this was to eliminate the county executive position. And the public in Wicomico County voted against this referendum. So they kept the position. And so this is, of course, excellent. We're very happy about that. I wanted to ask you, in what way or in what ways has your relationship with the county council or the county council members developed over time since that vote occurred about a year ago?
Yeah, to be diplomatic, I don't think they like to lose, and this one was definitely overwhelming. And I think that the council kind of got an earful from the public that this was not only just a waste of time, it was a waste of money. And for a 5-2, if you want to get political about it, the 5-2 Republican council, you should never, ever stifle your ability to vote for somebody. Like, so, and I told this to, and that's why I think, people gave me such a hard time because, we had to reach out to Democrats, we had to reach out to independents because we said, you really want the 7 members of the county council choosing who runs this government rather than you voting for it. Why would you ever take your vote away? Don't ever take your vote away. You know, I mean, that in itself is just something that is just unheard of at this point in time. You know, there are only 9 county executives throughout the state of Maryland, and we are lucky to have one in Wicomico County, regardless of it me or whoever is in the role. I'm not going to be in this role forever, believe me. So, you know, we're lucky to have that because the 9 county executives are able to really get things done in Annapolis. They're respected in Annapolis. It doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat. You know, the governor comes in and listens, you know, and whether you like Westmore or not, he's our governor. We have to work with him. And so he respects the county executives. What's really sad for me is that I am more respected in Annapolis than I am here. And then that's what's really frustrating sometimes, you know, in the role. And I will say, regardless of that, though, we are lucky to have a county executive form of government here. You have that balance between the executive and the legislative branch. And, you know, from that, you know, I would say that our relationship probably hasn't gotten better. They have legislated some other things that sort of, you know, make things a little bit more difficult for me and my staff. But, you know, I mean, it is what it is. You know, everything too shall come to an end. So I think a lot of those council members are not running again. So we should see a fresh new council. And I think that that is going to be something that's a really positive thing for here, you know, in the county. And that's just my personal opinion.
Veto. Shouldn't the executive have veto on anything that the council puts forward?
You mean for like the ballot referendum?
No, I'm talking about like legislation, like
well,
you said since then.
We can.
No, I mean since then you said there were certain things they put in place, such as I'm thinking of a couple of the boards or whatever. Don't you have say-so on those? So
we have veto power on legislative bills, but they can override the veto, so that's part of the checks and balance. So they can override the veto, but it has to be a supermajority, so they need 5, you know, to make sure. And so anytime I feel that something comes across that's unjust, I, you know, have to give an explanation as to why I'm vetoing it, even if it's just on paper, you know what I mean? We know that the law is going to go into effect. You know, a lot of times I don't think I have been successful at a veto at this point in time, but that's okay. That's okay, because regardless, they have it in their mind, you know, and I think that there are some council members that know. They know that you know, is a ridiculous piece of legislation that should never have happened. But again, they're just kind of going with the flow and, you know, that sort of thing. So it happens, but if there's something that I don't agree with, I have no problem vetoing it, and then kind of explaining why and what the reason is and what the charter says. It's typically like, hey, this violates this part of the charter, or hey, we, you know, already have this code in place, or hey, this should be in the personnel manual, this falls under the executive branch. And they really like to sort of chip away at that power, and when you start messing with the balance of power, that's when things are not really functional. So the way a county government is set up and the way that an executive and legislative branch is set up is to have balance. You know, that's why you have it. And so when you start chipping away at that, it does sort of mess with things a little bit.
I like to move it. Jumped off the porch, now I'm just cool. I had to change my mood in life. When I woke up, it's not just Judy. I like to move it. So please get out the way, excuse me. I like to move it. Jumped off the porch, now I'm just...
Okay, we're back with Bridging the Gap here, and we're with Thomas Luffman, also known as the Director of Administration for Wicomico County. Bunky?
Yeah.
Thank you again for our second interview.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
Yeah, so what's been going on?
Oh, well, we always stay busy in the county. There's always something we're working on. So, you know, there's sort of it's not every day something new pops up, but we have long-term projects on, you know, at the landfill and at the Civic Center. We're doing that great upgrade up there. The airport.
It looks good.
Yeah, our river, you know, so there's always long-term stuff, and then things pop up too. So we're always we always have to do short, medium, and long-term things all at once. So
True. And then, you know, the unique thing about you is the fact of you're doing all this stuff and not a lot of people hear you say anything about it.
that's true.
That's unique. I was actually, we did the executive decision a couple weeks ago, and Julie was letting us know that you did lunch a couple of days before with the president of the council. You do that a lot?
Yeah, so we've started. I had done it a couple years ago, and then when we brought in Steve Lakin, our new assistant director of administration, to his credit, he was like, "Hey, I think we should start that up again." And you know, to the council president's credit, he said, "Yeah, you know, I'll meet you guys for lunch." So we've had a couple lunches and plan to continue. I think it's a really good way to have good direct dialogue, and honestly, I know that multiple members, when we first brought Steve on after he was confirmed, met with him, had lunch with him, and I'm open to meeting with any of them. I mean, and I just told I told one of our new employees recently, one of the most enjoyable things I've done since I was a director of administration a couple years ago was actually do a tour of District 1 with Councilwoman Cheney Shields.
Okay.
Because, I grew up in Del Mar. My family's been here for hundreds of years, that kind of thing. So a lot of family all around. But, she showed me a part of Salisbury and the area's history that, frankly, I didn't know about. And it was great. It was great to hear about Uptown, which, of course, when I was growing up in the 70s, I think Uptown was probably still around, but I didn't know about it, and different businesses that had been sort of down there by where Brew River was, or where it is now, and she took us around and it was a really great tour. I'm glad she gave it to us.
Actually, you mentioned in Cheney, right? You're talking about that she took on the tour. Yeah, she'd actually told my wife and I about how, like, near Brew River used to be a whole new different, area. It was actually it was like the business area for the black community.
Yes.
And that's unique, and I thank you for actually touring that with her and doing lunch with President Cannon. So are you like making your way through everybody at the council, trying to get in, kind of not like mingle, but see where their heads is that the goal is?
Well, I'd be open to it, but really we were just going to meet with the council president. Now that you mentioned, I think that's a good idea too. I mean, I do talk to several, different members of the county council, out in the public. We see each other at events and stuff like that. And here's to their credit, even if there's something in front of them, because council meetings can get a little tense sometimes.
You think?
So even if there's something in front of them that we want to do and they vote it down, I could see them the very next day at, say, a chamber ribbon cutting or something like that, and they're cordial, socially. It's not. I think sometimes because of people watching, the video, or seeing, differences, like there seems to be more news coverage, and this isn't, I'm not blaming our local news, this is just general blanket statement.
Sure.
There seems to be more news coverage no matter where you go, when there's sort of a disagreement.
Yeah, I've noticed that.
So unfortunately, that sort of makes it look like there's always disagreements, and we agree on a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff that goes in front of the council that they agree on, and it goes right through. Sometimes with very little, interaction. Sometimes with a lot. It just depends on the issue, and that doesn't seem to make it, to
the top as much people see it.
Yeah, and honestly, it's not like we don't send press releases out on everything we agree with either. So, I mean, I'll take some responsibility on that, but. There is really a lot of work that gets done, even in times where there's some tension. So.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I've actually noticed that even when they were doing the protest that happened out front there, it seemed like Baltimore, their news seemed to pick up the negative of what's happening in Wicomico, and I mean, no disrespect to Baltimore. I mean, they got their own situation they could handle. And I remember when we spoke to the executive, which you were not here for that interview, she even said that also there's so much that they actually agree on because of the fact you sit down and have these conversations, but that never gets any television news time. So you are planning to go around and maybe think about, okay. I think that may actually help with communication, you know.
Absolutely.
Now, as the director of administration, you are in my opinion, please stop me, correct me if I'm wrong, you're the highest non-elected official for the county.
Yeah. So all the department heads report to me, and then I, report to the county executive, and ultimately I report, to the taxpayers of Wicomico County.
Sure. So you're the one that didn't get voted in, but you're doing work.
Yeah.
You're doing the work.
Yeah.
I mean.
Well, here's what you have to keep in mind. So some people at sort of my position, which is sort of a hybrid, like if you're in the private sector, like a chief of staff and an administrative officer, it's a little, and executive officer. It's sort of, you're doing a lot of things in this position. But the only way that this position works is if you have good department heads that you can work with and that are experts in their field. There's a gentleman, and this isn't a department head, there are multiple people over at the landfill that have literally been with our county for 50 years.
Yeah.
Those people have forgotten more about the landfill than I will ever know. And even though on the chart it shows that, you know, I'm higher up on the chart, they're absolutely experts in their field, and I would be a fool to go over there and try to tell them how to work on the landfill. And so in my position, you really have to know what your strengths are and what your limitations are. And when you don't have sort of the education or the experience of a department head or of an employee, at some level it's wise to defer to them on some things, you know. So that's, I think that's what makes it successful. You know, I don't think the top-down approach where, and this happens sometimes in private and public sector, where someone will come in and try to sort of run everything, you know, in a way that without listening to feedback and that kind of thing, and that just doesn't, that wouldn't work, you know. So, and I recognize that, and I recognize, you know, the strength of our employees. So
Impressive. Now,
jumped off the porch, now I'm just cool. I had to change my mood in life. When I woke up, it's not just Julie. I like to move it, so please get out the way, excuse me. I like to move it, jumped off the porch, now I'm just coming. I like to move it, jumped off the porch, now I'm just cool. I had to change my mood in life. When I woke up, it's not just Julie. I like to move it, so please get out the way, excuse me. I like to move it, jumped off the porch, now I'm just coming.
Now, April, let me ask you, how do they come about making that vote?
Well, what we do is actually we go through the resumes and see who's the best choice for that position. But sometimes that's not how it works all the time, for real. And once we take a vote on who we want, the majority wins that vote.
Are you able to say who the candidates are?
Yeah.
Okay.
The candidates are Jermichael Mitchell, Natalie Saintford, Melissa Holland, Sean Jester, and Wayne King.
Okay. Interesting. Now,
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. You first.
We were out in the lobby discussing some things, and we pretty much were saying it would probably be best to have a male on there other than the ladies that are there. You know, just to add something different.
A level playing ground is what it's called.
Yes.
Somebody who sometimes not always thinks like we think, but brings closure, brings and makes the division that we do have and we've had for quite some time on the council. It brings in, especially the person that has a light mind and is on there to do what is right. Doesn't have an agenda to set out to just sabotage everything. We want somebody on this council who is going to do the work, who has done the work.
Interesting.
And definitely qualified for it.
That's what we're looking for. That's what I'm looking for. Particular, you know, I'm just looking for somebody that is able to do it and has done it. Having somebody come on there who
and not looking for just a title.
Yeah, that hasn't done anything in the community. How do you connect with the community, or how have you connected with the community if you haven't? You know what I'm saying? So I'm not saying that nobody should go for the position, because there are quite a few that are going for the position, but we need to make better choices about how we do things. And I think also, since we've had an African American male on there and we're in the minority community, that we should have another male. I just don't think 5 women on the council is going to make it. Not too long, because it's very chaotic now with 4 women. Seriously, I'm being very vocal. I'm telling the truth. It's very it's divided.
Right.
It's actually divided, and we need the medium. We need the bridge in that gap. We need the bridge in that gap. And I just feel as though, you know, after reading the actual resumes and things of that sort, I'm not going to say what I'm going to do. I'm just going to act on it at that particular time. But I just think we need to be fair. And not people looking for a position, or people who are trying to get people to get on there so they can get a position.
Right.
No, it's not about it. You do what's right by the people.
It's all about the people.
Are you serving the people fairly? Are you doing whatever? You know, are you representing your city? Are you representing? Do you have mad respect for your mayor? You know, do you have mad respect for your council persons? And I don't see that. I haven't seen that in quite some time, and it's very disheartening because as long as I've been on this council, it's 10 years.
10 years.
10 years, and it's been hurtful because the first 5, I never had a problem. I didn't agree with everything.
Sure.
But we didn't have all
able to work.
this cat fighting stuff, you know. And women are about, and I'm going to be honest, women are about power.
Yeah.
There's a power struggle. It's about having something and not knowing what to do with it. It's a lot with us women. I can honestly say that. I said it before. When we were getting ready to put somebody else on the council, I said, this is going to be terrible. It's going to be terrible because we need a man. We had 2 men going off, and we need a man.
Mood in life. When I woke up, it's not just I like to move it, so please get out the way, excuse me. I like to move it. Jumped off the porch, now I'm just coming.